We cannot allow this ideology the safe space it needs to breed. Yet that is precisely what the internet and the big companies that provide internet-based services provide.
British Prime Minister Theresa May calling on the internet to be more regulated. This is tech giants Google, Facebook and Twitter say they've been working hard, very hard, to improve the technology to remove terror-related content. Are they really doing enough? Joining me right now, former CIA officer Buck Sexton. Thank you for being here. What's your synopsis right now of how they're doing?
This is not a new problem. There have been efforts underway for years to try and take some of the most heinous jihadist propaganda off of sites like Facebook and Twitter. And this is an active fight. They're trying to find new ways to use the algorithm and human review to do this. But it's also a fight that they're never going to entirely win. There's the huge platforms, which you can look at, and they have their terms of service and their private companies, so they can boot off whatever they want. Right. But as long as there's user-generated content, as long as someone with internet access can just put a photo or a video or write online, there will be the spread of jihadist propaganda.
The other problem you have is something called the dark web. It's basically the internet that exists that's less traceable, if you would. So this stuff also exists, not necessarily on the Facebooks of the world, but on this so-called dark web where people can access it and really not be traced to a certain degree. I mean, this, I think, Buck, makes it very complicated, very challenging, but at the same time, as we talk about free speech versus, you know, if you're conversing with a jihadi terrorist and indicating that you want to murder Westerners, shouldn't we be going after those people in the process?
Absolutely, and in this country, for material support to terrorism, for example, the sentences have gotten very long. People go to federal prison for decades for their communications, even indicating that they want to join the Islamic State, and if they take an affirmative step towards that, they can be arrested. But in the context of an international government agreement to regulate internet content that could turn someone to jihad, that becomes very murky and quite complicated quickly. And I think that you're also going to see that a lot of places would have very different views on what is acceptable and not acceptable content. I mean, the notion of international censorship between countries with regard to jihadist propaganda online, I don't know how anybody would draw those lines. Just in the context of even in this country, what would you be willing to say somebody should go to prison for in terms of their speech? If they say that the Islamic State, for example, is an organization that does some good, should they go to prison for that? Or is that a matter that we would, you know, so you get into, and quite honestly, also, even if they could do this as perfectly as the Prime Minister would say that they should, there would still be jihadism. There'd still be people radicalizing in the back of a mosque. There'd be radicalizing on their own.
In other words, we could see Facebook and other tech companies do more to report these jihadists so intelligence officials can go after them. And it's scary that so many of these guys are known and yet they're able to carry out these attacks. Clearly, we need to do more.